Before we begin this episode, we need to give a quick shout out to Clockwise in Southampton, who were kind enough to let us use their space to record this episode with Melissa, who is a local surface pattern designer and illustrator. Clockwise was the perfect place to be recording with Melissa because her work is colourful and joyous, but also she's very ambitious, cool and calm, as you'll hear in this episode, just like Clockwise. So if you haven't heard of Clockwise before, it is a co-working space in Grosvenor Square, which is in Bedford Place in Southampton. They are primarily a co-working space, but they do offer a range of passes which give you access to their beautiful cafe and club lounge. You can also buy a day pass, or you can go for their dedicated desk or a private office, depending on what you need. So I've linked to Clockwise in the description below so you can check them out yourself. Pop into their cafe. It's in a beautiful spot and it's got a lovely outdoor terrace. Welcome to the podcast, Melissa. It's so nice to have you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing about your career journey and all your illustrations. You've got some amazing, colourful goods on the table, and I know you've had a really exciting collaboration with Paper Chase recently, so we're going to get into that. But I guess to start off the conversation in this lovely space in Clockwise, how would you define creativity, and would you class yourself as a creative person?
I think finding a definition of creativity is quite difficult because it means something different to like each person. But for me, it's just the opportunity to kind of express myself. And I do that mainly through colour, which always makes people laugh because I'm a total goth. I always wear just black, usually, and my work is so colourful. I will show you some of this in a sec. But yeah, creativity is a way for me to kind of get some things out of me, I think, and create work that is joyful, and, you know, ultimately makes people kind of smile. That's like my kind of motto, really. And I would say I'm quite a creative person. Like, I always remember enjoying art at school. And I did like GCSE art. And I remember leaving everything to the last minute, which was a nightmare. That's kind of what I do. And then I didn't continue it for A-levels. Like, I did academic A-levels. But beyond that, I went back to creativity, and after a long period of not doing something creative, I knew I needed to get back into it. So I think that proved to me that I am a creative person because it never really goes away. And I needed to do something that got my kind of creative juices flowing. So yeah, I don't think you're necessarily born with creativity. It's something you can develop, and certainly it's not just about being able to draw or being able to paint. It can be like a feeling of just wanting to create something that brings joy to people.
I kind of want to go back slightly on something you said, if you don't mind. That you, I guess, kind of dropped creativity a little bit and did academic A-levels. I was just wondering if there was something that caused that.
No, I can't remember. It's a long time ago. So I did 3 A-levels, and things have changed, like with how many you do and all that now. But I think I took 3 A-levels and I began 2 ASs as well, which was absolutely crazy. And that was in music and art. So I did have a bit of like creativity going on in the background, but I couldn't do all of them. And then I decided I wanted to go and read history at university. I'd always loved history. So that's the kind of path I went on. But then I met my now husband when I was 18, and we've been married 25 years in September. It's a long time. So when I met him, I decided I didn't want to go off to university straight away. And that's when I did an art foundation course. And that's when it kind of began. And that kind of period of studying a creative subject was a bit of a overview of my life. So, yeah.
Did you have a creative upbringing? Like, was there someone that encouraged that in you at an early age?
Yeah, I mean, my family aren't overly creative. They're like quite like academic. So that was encouraged, but never like forced upon me. My parents are very chilled out. And I think I put myself under pressure to achieve quite a lot at school and college, whereas they didn't really. So I guess when I was doing art, they were really supportive of that as well. But it didn't really matter what I was doing. They were just quite positive about me doing something that I really enjoyed. Yeah. Which at that stage, I enjoyed both academic and creative work. And it was quite hard to make a decision. Yeah. So that was my dilemma, which direction to go in. Yeah.
And you studied film at uni?
Yeah, I studied fashion for my undergraduate degree, fashion design. So I was like making garments, which was really hard. I'm not very good at sewing, so I enjoyed the kind of research, the trend analysis, the drawing, just not so much the sewing, which was unfortunate because I had to create a whole collection at the end. So I did that for my undergraduate, and then I decided to go back to uni a couple of years later, and I did a master's degree in film at the University of Southampton, which is not filmmaking, it was film theory. So I have no practical skills in film whatsoever. It was just, film studies really, And that was because I'd done something creative, loved it. But again, I was like having this kind of argument with myself, which way to go? Should I do something creative? Should I do something academic? So I just ended up doing both, which was quite nice in a way.
Yeah. I think that happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Like trying to balance this practical side, but also wanting to just indulge a little bit. And it feels like you have to do one or the other.
It really does. And I guess in a way, I can see myself as quite lucky that I could do both. My husband's always saying to me, he's quite academic. He's a film studies teacher actually, but he just wishes he had that creative kind of, those creative skills. And he is creative in other ways, just not, he can't draw unless you're talking about stickman. So, but he is very creative as well. So I think you can be both.
Yeah.
Just in different ways.
Would you still, because I know before we started recording, you said that you didn't use your degree that much. Would you still go back and study fashion and go on to do film if you could?
I've often asked myself this now that I'm a full-time illustrator, whether I should have focused on illustration. Because although there is some drawing in fashion, it's quite different. It's very different to what I do now. And it was all analog. I didn't learn how to do digital art at all during my degree. But I absolutely loved the environment of being with other people that were studying the same thing and creating and having like crits and a chance to kind of present your work and get feedback. That was an amazing experience. And I think it cemented my like love of colour as well. And I probably would have done textiles, printed textiles, from what I do now with surface pattern design. It wasn't an option at the time. I didn't offer it. So I probably would have done something similar. But yeah, printed textiles would have been probably more my bag. But we're going back like 20 years. So I was pretty much a different person back then.
Yeah.
But I don't regret it. And I love doing film. And actually, after I graduated from my master's degree, I went pretty much straight onto a PhD. And I did that for 2 years. I never finished it. So I'm not Dr. Donne, which is a shame because it's got such a ring to it.
It does.
But that was great because I looked at the fashion and film industries and the relationship between them, and like fashion films, not costume. It was more to do with like the industries behind those things. So that was great. But then I realised I didn't want to be an academic. So I stopped doing that and went on to something else, which is a bit of a pattern in my life. Actually, what I do now is the longest I've ever done something for, and that's just over 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do tend to jump around a bit, but I definitely feel like I found my calling now. But I'm glad I studied what I studied, basically, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like there's kind of interconnections as well, because having your own, your products and selling through like shops and things, there is quite a practical side to that as well, isn't there? You have to be on top of what sort of things selling?
Absolutely. I think fashion in particular helped me with like trend analysis and marketing a bit, because you're planning ahead quite a lot for product ranges. So usually you're working 1 or 2 years in advance. And I remember on my fashion degree, we would go to the library and have access to all these kind of trend journals, which were always like ahead. So I learned kind of how to analyse trends, which has been quite useful in my work that I do now.
Does that sort of thing change your designs as well? Do you look at things that are trending and kind of move with that, or do you just do what you feel like doing?
I should take more notice than I do. I'm a little bit random. Like, people always say to me, how do you come up with your colours? Expecting me to say that I've made this like colour palette or a list of trends, a mood board. In reality, that doesn't really always happen. It does sometimes. It does with commissions more. But if I'm drawing for pleasure, I would just pluck something out of my head and just put it on paper, well, a screen. So I think I pay some attention to trends. Like at the moment, there's a huge trend for bows everything. And I've done quite a lot of that in my work. But that's more because I enjoy drawing bows and how they look, rather than because I should be doing it. And that's kind of a bit of a pattern with me as well.
It's really interesting hearing you saying, because obviously if you've seen your patterns on Instagram and those like just lovely things to look at, but you don't always know the process behind it and how you got to drawing the thing you're drawing, but also the digital side, because you do digital work, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I know people do say to me, like, where do you get your inspiration from? And I've written a long blog post on that, which people are welcome to check out. And I do gather inspiration from like external sources, but a lot of the time it's just in my head. It just comes out. I don't really know why or how. And it's just, it just comes from somewhere. I just love putting colour together, and colours that shouldn't work as well. Clashing colours. And I have been known to describe my work as colour vomit, which is really disgusting. But it's kind of how I think. I just get these colours in my head and they just come out.
Do you ever draw on physical paper as well?
Not as much as I should. I do occasionally. I bought some paints recently and started playing around with those. But it's kind of messy. The iPad is just so easy. I can lie on the sofa and do it. And I've actually just started to learn Illustrator, which means sitting at a desk. Because I don't have a laptop, I do it on a desktop with a drawing tablet. And it's really weird sitting upright to work because I'm normally just sort of lounging on the sofa. So that's a different way of working. But yeah, I think analog drawing is great and it really helps. But it's not something I do that often. But it is something I want to do more often. Yeah,
I think that's a really important thing to highlight for people who make their own work, but also people generally on the topic of creativity. Because like you said before, people think that you have to be able to draw to be creative. And when something's on the screen, you still have to be able to draw. But like you say, it's quicker, isn't it?
It's quicker, and you've got an undo button, which is very useful.
Exactly.
I've always said this, and people, especially my family, say, don't talk such rubbish, but I'm not the best illustrator because I see amazing illustrators that can draw photorealistic portraits, things like that. That's not me. I've just found something that works for me, and I draw in a certain way that works for me. I hate drawing people, and I always think as an illustrator I should be able to draw these amazing kind of people, which is weird because I did fashion and I was drawing figures, but digitally it just does not, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's just not something I'm really into. So I think my main message would be to just have a play and create something that feels right, and you don't have to do anything in particular, and you don't have to be amazing at drawing, because you can learn it. And Procreate, which is what I use mainly, is such an intuitive program. And I started with nothing, no kind of digital skills whatsoever. And then I just practiced every day. And now I feel comfortable with the program, and I feel like I can say, yeah, I'm an illustrator, and not have too much imposter syndrome.
I kind of want to pick up on something that you just said about imposter syndrome, because you've obviously, or for anyone who's listening who doesn't already know, Melissa has quite a big following on social media. You know, a known illustrator and their works in shops and out in the world, they wouldn't necessarily think that you might still have that imposter syndrome and be able to sit there and say, I am an illustrator.
Oh, totally guilty of imposter syndrome and quite frequent creative existential crises, because it's my love, and when I'm not creating, I feel really rubbish because I always worry it's never going to come back. There's always that sense that you're kind of plodding along and you're creating work and it feels amazing, and then it stops inexplicably, usually, and then it's like, will it ever come back? And that kind of feeds into the imposter syndrome a bit, because I feel like I should be uber creative all the time and creating all this new original art, and sometimes it doesn't flow. But like anything, it's the degree to which it can affect your creativity. Because if you're kind of constantly in that negative mindset, that can have an impact. So it's like this vicious cycle, basically. Yeah, I do suffer from it from time to time, not all the time. Sometimes I can sit back and say, look at what you've achieved. You know, there's more I want to achieve for sure, but I can sit here and say, yeah, I've done okay, and that's good, and I get a good response to my work. But sometimes, some days, I'm just like, that's not happening. I'm rubbish.
Do you think being on social media, and I'm guessing that you follow probably quite a lot of other illustrators, do you think that feeds into it, like seeing other people's output? And
the comparison trap is really bad, and I think social media platforms like Instagram really feed into that. And there's this kind of motto really in kind of my world where it's and I've forgotten it. It's community over competition, which is kind of this idea that we should all be supportive of each other and not in competition. And I love that kind of idea. So I try not to compare myself too much to other people, but we all kind of inspire each other in different ways, and that's really great. That's a really positive aspect of social media, and I've built some amazing relationships with people on there, and done the networking, and peer support is great a lot of the time, and it's lovely to see what other people are doing and feel really happy for them. So yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword in a way, I think, Instagram, but there are many positives to it as well.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I could be wrong on this, but I guess, does it make it slightly easier to post frequently and keep that momentum going, because your work's digital, isn't it? So you can kind of just upload it rather than having to photograph
I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do when they're first starting out, is to just post work, because you're self-critical, and I've kind of been able to let go of that a bit now, and I just post whatever. So my last post is a pattern that I created on the Illustrator, and it's my first ever pattern on there, and it is not my best pattern, and I would never have posted that maybe a couple of years ago, but now I don't care as much. It's like a work in progress, and I think it's really good to show people what you're working on and not amazingly polished finished pieces, and that makes it more interesting. So I think posting quite frequently is a good idea to feed the social media beast in a way, because of engagement and all that, but it is also really good to just get your work out there, because you never know who's going to see it. And actually, thinking about it, I would say the vast majority of my commissions have come through Instagram. So it's an important tool, but it has limitations as well.
So in terms of inspiration for your work, do you go to exhibitions, or do you think it's important to be out in the world and be inspired by other people's work?
I think I think like inspiration, creativity doesn't just have to come from like within. And I think it's reflective of your life experiences as well, the sort of your personality, all those kind of things. So my work is a product of what I've done in the past as well, and just life in general. So a lot of my inspiration does still come internally, just things that I see around me as well, things I want to buy.
Yeah.
I often draw stuff that I would like to own, like really cool vases and stuff like that. I'm a bit of a shopaholic, so I'm often on websites looking at nice things, and that inspires me a lot to draw similar things. But yeah, I do go to exhibitions when I can. I've got a 10-year-old who gets very bored, so we don't go as often as I'd like to. But yeah, I went to a recent exhibition in London. I think it's called Flowers, just Flowers. It's at the Saatchi Gallery. And that was so inspiring. It was flowers in like illustration, painting, sculpture, video, books, film, all sorts. So that really inspired me, and I came away from that thinking, oh, I just want to create. And often just walking around, I'll see colours and patterns that I like. So that all does really help. But I also look digitally for inspiration.
Hello, sorry to interrupt your listening. I just wanted to remind you that if you're enjoying this episode, you're about halfway through, and I would love to hear what you think. If you're enjoying this, the feedback form is linked below in the description.
Platforms like Pinterest are a great starting point.
I love Pinterest.
It's brilliant. I mean, again, I've spoken a little bit about limitations for social media, and the thing with Pinterest is there's a bit of copying that can go on because you might get work pinned without credit. So that's a bit of a problem with Pinterest. And also, I've always said, I think taking inspiration, reference photos, all that kind of stuff is absolutely fine as long as it's unique, original work that you create from that. So I always pay attention that I'm creating something that is easily identifiable as my work. That's really important to me, to keep my style consistent as possible, which isn't always, it can be a really good thing, but it can sometimes prevent you from experimenting. So what I've done at the moment, excuse me, is a lot of my work is very textured, and that's kind of what I've established. But I'm working in Illustrator now, which is flatter. And for ages, I tortured myself. Should I go in a different direction? I've established my style. What do I do if I want to try something different? But I was just like, I've got to try something different. I'm a bit stuck in a rut and I want to experiment. So I'm doing something a bit different now, and that feels really good.
Yeah, I think I saw your posts on Instagram actually, and I really liked how I guess just authentic they were, of saying I'm trying this new way, and it's a new thing for me, and kind of putting yourself out there in that way, even like you said, with lots of people seeing it.
I think there's I'm definitely a perfectionist as a like personality trait, and that can be really difficult to keep up that kind of standard and that fear of always letting something slip. But I've learned with creativity, it's really important to be able to let go sometimes and just create for the fun of it, try something new, and look to places for inspiration that aren't maybe conventional. Yeah, just relax into it, I think, as much as possible, and it will come. Yeah. And there's times where I struggle for inspiration, but I absolutely know from past experience that if it goes, it will come back. It just, you don't know when. But it's about going back to basics, maybe drawing something that I'm used to drawing, and that's like the first step. And beyond that, it kind of comes trickling back in, and then before I know it, it's back, and I can create work I love again.
I've got a bit of a curveball question for you.
You can ask me anything.
I'm just thinking how to word it. No, I kind of want to ask you how you define success now, because it sounds like you started with your early stages, didn't you, where you were doing film and everything, and then you progressed along this river to colourful illustration and surface patterns and things like that. So yeah, I guess it would be interesting for people to hear if that definition that you had when you were younger has maybe changed and what it is now.
So I think success is quite an abstract notion, but I would say I've got to a stage now where I can look at my work and think, yeah, I'm pleased with that, and that feels successful. And should I show some of my...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so got a few bits here. You'll find there's a lot of like florals. This is really cool. It's like iridescent. That was one of my first commissions with Casetify, and I kind of do abstract work. That's the other thing I was going to say about inspiration, because I do a lot of floral work, but what I try and do is make it a bit more abstract, give it something a bit more unique and different. I very rarely draw flowers as they should be, and that's kind of become one of my most common like motifs that I use. I've got some cards here, so it's quite a range here. Again, a lot of florals, but I just try and make them colourful and playful. I kind of want to say whimsical as well. And then this is a little bit different because I do a lot of food, but this is all like floral really. But this is my first cookbook cover, which was really fun to do. It's available in all good bookshops. So yeah, it's really great. And I did the back cover as well, which is fun. And this was just from the recent collaboration with Paper Chase. And they did an amazing job with my work. They just put so many details on it that are so special. Creative director she designed some amazing products. So I did like a few illustrations which were put on stuff, and then you've got like this little orange post-it. It's lovely, and pen with my name on it, which is really surreal. So that was an amazing project, and I'm still kind of buzzing about that one.
I love how the ribbon is the right colour.
Yeah, it all matches so beautifully, and like the gold details. Gold details on the front. I don't know if you can pick that up, but yeah. So going back to what we were talking about with success, I think there's still so much I want to do. So I don't feel like I've peaked yet, which is a nice feeling, because I think you can peak too soon maybe, or that you've achieved everything you want to achieve, and then it's like, where do you go from here? Whereas there's so much more I want to do, and that's really exciting.
Were these products like, did you have a kind of thing in your mind of what you wanted to be working on? Were these things that you thought of before they happened?
I would say that I don't usually design with a product in mind. I know some like surface pattern designers do. I just create work that I want to create. I basically create it for me because it's what I like. And I know it's a bit naughty sometimes. I should be thinking about the bigger picture. But I just create stuff that I really would like to own.
Yeah, and obviously people love your work too, because they're coming to you for these patterns and turning them into amazing things like a cookbook. And
it's amazing. When I first started out, I didn't have any concept of like art licensing and surface pattern design really, and I've been doing surface pattern design for a couple of years now, and it really did change things for me. And I would encourage any illustrator to give it a go, because there's just everything can have a pattern. You know, you can just walk around the shops and look at all sorts of products, and a lot of them have patterns on them. And there's so many possibilities and opportunities to put your work, your patterns on something. And yeah, it's really exciting. I've had one that was like an Apple Arcade game, and that's something I would never have imagined that my patterns could be part of.
Yeah.
There's a whole game in Apple Arcade where you put seamless patterns together, and those patterns are licensed, so that's just another use. I've got patterns on like craft kits and umbrellas, pajamas, all sorts. So it's really exciting. Puzzles as well.
Yeah, I guess that's the interesting thing with your medium, I guess, isn't it? That you've already designed these patterns. So the process of turning them into a product, like, do you ever have that pushback of like deciding with somebody else what it should look like? Do you have to kind of hold your style to your own standard and get them to do things in a certain way, or is it?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I've been quite lucky up to now. I've been able to create something like in my own style that the client has wanted that style. So it's been fairly straightforward to just create work that feels like me. Like I haven't really had to adapt it too much to fit the client's needs. And especially with Tesco, Paperchase, they very much saw it as an artist collaboration from the get-go, and it was all about me, really. That's why my name is on it, because they wanted an artist collaboration and they wanted my style. So that was a perfect project in so many ways for that reason. But no, I've been pretty lucky so far with the projects I've done. They've all been great and I've really enjoyed doing them. Yeah.
What does that process look like? Like, how do they approach you? Is it via social media, or is it a bit more official than that, like an email?
I mean, Casetify actually did contact me on by DM, and I had to ask myself whether it was legit, because I didn't know what was going on, because that was quite early on in my kind of career.
Yeah.
But most will contact me via email if they've seen me on Instagram, or I'll get like a form submission on my website, so I know where that's come from. I also have an agent, so I get work through them. And sometimes I apply. There's like places you can submit your art to. So I'll send off some patterns, submit them on their website, or just find the right person to contact, and do it that way. So it's a combination of things, really. But I've been quite lucky that a lot of work comes to me and I don't have to do kind of pitch emails, because I'm not brilliant at doing that, like reaching out. And that's something I need to work on, because you can't just expect work to come to you all the time. You have to kind of put yourself out there and find it too.
Yeah, I guess it's like finding new audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And the surface pattern design world in particular is very competitive. I would say there's a lot of people doing that kind of work. So in order to stand out in a kind of competitive crowd, you have to try and do something a bit different, but also be brave enough to send your work to these companies.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Soton Makers market, because you started running those, didn't you, locally? And it seems like, I don't know, I feel like it's a way of supporting other people to put their work out there.
The main drive for us with Soton Makers is to create a community for creatives, because there's a lot of talent in Southampton. There's lots of amazing makers, and there's not a huge number of venues or opportunities for markets in Southampton. If I look at other kind of cities around this area, there's a lot more going on. So there was a kind of a gap in the market to do something, and we had an amazing venue at the City Art Gallery, but unfortunately that's closed for a whole year for roof repairs. So we're looking for another venue to get those started again, because they've been really successful and we've had really good feedback. People seem to really love doing markets for sales, but also for networking. They're great opportunities to do that.
Yeah, it's always really nice to see things like that happening in the city as well, because there's not, like you say, there's not a lot of space for things like that.
It's a matter of space, but I think like venues are really hard to come by, and a lot of the makers that we had have before they did these markets in Southampton, they're travelling around quite a lot to find them. I mean, certainly when I was doing markets, I was travelling crazy distances, going to Bristol, Birmingham, London, because there was nothing really in my hometown. So yeah, we just thought we kind of inherited it. It was already Soton Makers when we took over, but it was kind of there to develop basically into something more frequent, I think. We normally hold about 3 or 4 markets a year, which we want to increase, but it was building up and we're becoming more known. We've got quite good following on Instagram, lots of people are interested. So yeah, it's been great for us, but also I think for giving makers an opportunity to take part in markets in Southampton.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity, like you say, because otherwise, it's quite hard to develop those marketing skills to do it all online and yourself. If you're making the work and you're marketing it and you're physically going to these places, it's a lot.
Yeah. So there's 3 of us that do it. It was originally myself, Helen, who is a maker based in Winchester, and Carol Hillman, who is another illustrator in Southampton. But Carol, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, is very pregnant and she's she's moving back to France. So she decided to step out, but she was amazing. And Mia Winston Hart, who some people might know, has stepped in now. And she's lived in Southampton a while. She knows lots of people. So that's going to be really exciting for us to have someone else to get involved. So between the 3 of us, we organise everything. And that's been a bit of a learning curve because none of us have a background in like event management. We've learnt quite a lot from our first market. We've got like a flow going. We know a bit more about the marketing and advertising and what we need to do to make it a success, because it's all about, I think, good organisation, but footfall is really important. And it's about building more interest in handmade products in Southampton. It is quite a creative city, but I think it's got more pockets of creativity rather than a general vibe. So it's about tapping into that, really.
Yeah, 100%.
And getting more people through the door so they can see these wonderful products that people are making.
Yeah. Yeah, so many people say that I speak to on the podcast and just in person. Like, there are almost siloed communities in Southampton.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm from Portsmouth originally, but I've lived in Southampton like 20 plus years, so longer here than I was ever in Portsmouth. But I always looked to Portsmouth as a comparison, and it's got a more general creative atmosphere, I think, than Southampton. And they have lots of markets as well. But there's just a sense, I think, that Southampton was trailing behind a bit because Bournemouth is also quite creative.
Yeah.
But I think it's really building up in Southampton now. And certainly there's more opportunities. But yeah, we're trying to fill a bit of a gap in the market for something. And it's been great. It's been really fun to be part of.
Yeah. Would you have any tips for somebody who wants to start, making illustration products in some form, whether that's surface patterns or something else?
I would say don't hold back from just starting and trying something. And I think it's about finding the right tool for you. Because just using myself as an example again, starting learning Illustrator is completely new to me and it has terrified me for many years, but I just decided to go for it. I've had moments of sheer frustration with it, but it's so fun. I'm a huge advocate for learning new skills and just never stop learning, basically. It's really important to keep educating yourself and gathering skills. But you don't need loads of skills to get started. I would just say, take that leap of faith and just try. And if the first attempt is not great, you will get better. I look back at my early work and it's definitely not all gold. I mean, it's not all gold now either, but I can see the progression that I've made, and that's just through practicing every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's probably quite nice as well, isn't it? If you're making work, but it's not all like stacks of paper somewhere in the room, you get to keep a bit more of it and look back at how your styles developed.
Exactly, until you accidentally delete a whole stack of work on Procreate, which is what I've done.
Oh no.
Before. So I back up my work now. That's a useful tip. Back up.
Yeah. Have there been any obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Certainly, I mean, I've talked a bit about imposter syndrome and creative block, which still plagues me from time to time. But I think in a practical sense, there's a few things that are quite challenging as a freelance illustrator. I mean, like working from home is sometimes quite lonely and isolating. But on the other hand, the flexibility has been like wonderful. Having my base at home is close to my son's school. I can do school runs and things like that. And my mum's down the road, so I see her quite a lot. It's just a nice kind of work.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's a great way to work, but it can be a bit lonely. And one of the ways I try and counter that is to meet up with other creatives as much as possible, and that's sometimes online as well. It just is a nice kind of change from being at home on my own drawing all day. So I think the other thing about being a freelance is having to wear so many different hats. So I need to be good, or at least competent at, marketing and admin and taxes and other things that you need to kind of address as part of your job. And I think one of the ways I try and make that happen is by being as organised as possible, making a timetable each week, trying to have a bit of structure. Because that's been a problem for me in the past, is the structure aspect. I will sometimes wake up at 5 and start working, and then I won't do anything between the hours of like 9 and 5, and then I start working again at 5 or 6, which is just how my brain works, but it's not good long term. So it's just about putting little things in place that make my life a bit easier.
Yeah, I completely know what you mean. I work from home as well, and it can be really hard to keep, like you say, keep that structure and work semi-normal times so that your personal life doesn't fall off a cliff.
Exactly. And the other thing about working from home is having a space. I don't really have my own studio or even spare room. My desk is currently in my bedroom. I don't even have a desk chair because it's too small, so I've got a stool. So I can literally be sitting at the computer, roll off my stool into bed, which is not ideal, because I do sometimes find myself taking naps. So I don't even need to put my feet on the ground. I can just literally roll into bed, which is great. So yeah, definitely one of my goals is to have a studio space of some description. I don't need a lot of space because I don't hold physical products. But it would be lovely to have that's what I'm trying to say, a dedicated space for my work. That's a bit of an obstacle as well.
I kind of wish we had that in Southampton. For anyone listening who knows Southampton, you'll know that Debenhams has been empty for a very long time.
I know, and to be honest, my best market ever was just after COVID lockdown had ended for the first time, and in Portsmouth there was a huge Debenhams that was vacant, and the people that run Victoria's Festival basically took it over and made it into a space where they would hold markets. They hold about 6 markets there, I think, over a period of months. And it was just incredible. And that was the timing partly because people were so desperate to get out and visit, and making was brilliant at that time as well, because I think handmade was a really nice alternative. But yeah, they took it over and made it into something. So yeah, Southampton needs to do the same.
They really do. I need to find whoever is in charge of that
huge.
Process.
It would be amazing, and it needs to happen.
So amazing.
I think something similar happened in Bournemouth as well.
Yeah.
a department store. I can't remember what it was, but they took that over and made it into a creative space and shop and everything.
I think in terms of supporting local makers like yourself as well, like there's so many people that come in and out of Southampton because it's a port and there's the cruise ships, and it would create a real...
I think let's do it.
Yeah, we need like a committee or something.
That'd be amazing. A big pop-up shop would be... I've got some ideas now.
Like all those windows going along that curb, along the pavement.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be amazing.
Melissa Donne, make a like gold lettering. It would look amazing.
There's so many people that would want to do something like that though. I know loads of people in the city that are desperate for a space to sell their stuff. And yeah,
because we've got art, like places like the Archers Studios, but that's
it's a bit out of the way. I've never been down there. I think one other thing that Southampton is lacking is like retail outlets for makers. There's a few, but there's not a huge number of independent shops. It's quite centred around West Quay. So yeah, retailers open some shops in Southampton for handmade products. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, because like you say, with the makers market and also just generally, there are so many people doing things in Southampton. It's just tucked away, and I'm like at the point of desperation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, come on, just make something.
It's really frustrating.
It is really frustrating. I won't harp on about that because I spoke about it in the last episode too.
It's when I start like criticising Southampton and saying how wonderful Portsmouth is. It's not a good idea in Southampton. A bit of rivalry. And I'm a Pompey fan, so.
Oh, well, you just...
My husband and me are Pompey fans, like quite kind of dedicated Pompey fans. But my son Felix was born in Southampton, so he's a Saints fan. So there's a bit of conflict there. It's just a football thing.
Yeah. I'll say nothing about that. I didn't have anything to do with football. So, if people haven't come to a makers market or visited your website or seen you on Instagram, where can they find more about you and your work?
I do have a website, which I've worked really hard on, and I love how it looks, so feel free to visit it. Because I've got a really good blog on there, which I'm building up, and I've had good feedback about that. So, you can find out quite a lot about me and my work on my website. If you want to see physical products, my collaboration with Tesco has now ended, sadly. But I did these cards with Rumble cards. You can find those on their website. She does amazing collaborations with artists, so that's a good one. And obviously Paella is still out for publication. Yeah, I've got some products out in the world at the moment, but the best way is to go onto my website. Under client work, it will have a list of like my collaborations and stuff, some of which have ended, others are still going. So yeah,
exciting. We'll have to look out for what comes next too.
Yeah, I've done a couple of things. So that I'm the mouse of the South. I get described as by my family, so I have to keep my mouth shut, which is hard, but I will do it.
And I'll drop a link to your Instagram and your website and things in the description for the podcast and the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see all the lovely things on the table. And if you're not on YouTube, then you should go on YouTube right now and have a look. Cool. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to talk to you.
It's been great. Thank you.